Imagine the sky darkening as if a massive storm is approaching. Millions to billions of passenger pigeons would ascend, their myriad numbers blocking the sunlight and reaching speeds of 60 miles per hour. These flocks could take hours, even days, to pass by. This remarkable species went from populations estimated at 10 billion to 0 in just 40 years. The passenger pigeon was by far the most predominant bird of its time, comprising 25 to 40% of North America's bird life. The passenger pigeons were native to North America's eastern and central regions, thriving in deciduous forests. Their most abundant nesting colonies, known as pigeon cities, were concentrated in the Great Lakes regions, particularly in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio. The bolded enclosure depicts the regions they inhabited, and the dashed line enclosed area depicts where the species nested in greatest abundance. The passenger pigeon was a keystone species, vital to the migration and survival of big-seeded tree species across North America. Their diet included a variety of seeds and nuts, particularly beech, chestnut, and hickory, as well as soft fruits, earthworms, snails, and insect larvae. Evolved to swallow nuts whole, they could digest them over 12 hours, releasing viable seeds as they traveled hundreds of miles daily, often across the Great Lakes. These birds also influence forest dynamics, favoring white oaks over red oaks through selective foraging. By dispersing seeds and enriching soils, passenger pigeons helped shape and sustain forest ecosystems, especially after the Ice Age tree populations were wiped out in northern Canada. The killing of the birds began in the 1600s with the Native Americans who hunted passenger pigeons using nets, often catching hundreds on windy days. As Joel Greenberg explains in his book A Feathered River Across the Sky, tribes like the Iroquois and Cherokee held the species in high regard, honoring them with a pigeon dance during their annual maple festivals. For the Ho-Chunk people of Wisconsin, the pigeon was a chief bird, only hunted with the chief's permission in command for a feast around the 1700s. Greenberg, a naturalist and research associate of the Chicago Academy of Sciences, contrasts these intentional, sustainable practices of the Native Americans with the later mass exploitation by European settlers. By 1781, European settlers across New Hampshire, Boston, Maine, and Toronto relied heavily on passenger pigeons as a staple food. The bird's meat was widely consumed, their feathers were used for bedding, and recipes like pigeon pie became popular. Settlers even believed the pigeons had medicinal properties such as curing bloody fluxes. Arlie William Schorger, co-founder of the Wisconsin Society for Ornithology, had first-hand experience with the passenger pigeons and became a leading figure on their natural history and extinction. Schorger estimated that the average passenger pigeon nesting site, based on 47 nests, spanned 10 miles long and 3 miles wide, providing optimal foraging opportunities for the massive flocks. However, the pigeons were destructive to the timber they occupied, stripping trees of their branches and feasting on farmers' fields. Landowners and farmers began to despise the birds. They are described as pernicious varmints by the 1850s. In the 1840s, passenger pigeons became a commodity, hunted exclusively for food and extra income. By the 1850s, the expansion of railroads enabled traders like the Allen brothers to ship pigeons from Michigan, where they sold for a dime a dozen, to New York, where they fetched $2 each. Nets capable of capturing 2,000 to 3,000 birds at a time became a common tool, while guns, which replaced bows and arrows by the mid-1800s, claimed more birds than any other method, as noted by Arlie William Schorger. Innovations like the stool pigeon, a live decoy tied to a stool, and white oak pigeon baskets used to transport live birds for competitions on the East Coast further drove their destruction. Hunters sometimes sewed the birds' eyelids shut to prevent them from warning others, and chemicals like strychnine poisoned flocks, making them unsafe to eat. By the 1870s, passenger pigeons were so overhunted that they became oversupplied in markets, with merchants in Pennsylvania giving them away for free. The commodification of the species and the relentless hunting practices foreshadowed their tragic decline. In 1871, Wisconsin experienced the largest nesting colonies of passenger pigeons ever recorded, spreading across 850 square miles and involving an estimated 136 million adult birds. This abundance was met with unprecedented destruction. Over 1.2 million birds were killed outright, while shooting, burning, and the cutting of nesting trees disrupted the colony, causing many birds to abandon their nests before eggs were laid or hatched. Squabs' young pigeons were especially prized, and barrels were filled with them. Passenger pigeons nested only once a year and laid a single egg, so the combination of relentless hunting and a near-total nesting failure in 1871 signaled the beginning of the species' collapse. The expansion of railroads and telegraph networks played a critical role in this destruction, enabling hunters to locate nesting sites and transport massive hauls of birds to the markets. As Henry Edinburgh observed, 1871 marked the end of the passenger pigeon as a common species at the south end of Lake Michigan. And so the road to destruction continued. In Missouri, trap shooting competitions secured 60,000 birds, yet 2/3 perished before reaching their final destination. Preservation techniques and innovations such as Swift and Company's first successful refrigerator railcar in 1878 extended the storage of pigeon stock, with some as long as 3 years. At the same time, pigeons were being destroyed as pests. Farmers in Texas burned thousands of acres of woods to eliminate flocks as they deemed menaces, while hunters used burning sulfur to asphyxiate birds, causing them to drop lifelessly from trees. By 1878, passenger pigeons made their last known attempt to breed in vast numbers. Railcars within a few years saw the last of the species. Joel Greenberg documented the final 37 major nesting areas between 1870 and 1882, each marked by relentless hunting and habitat destruction. After 1883, the pigeons appeared only in smaller swarms, making them even easier targets. With their nesting colonies gone and their numbers dwindling, hunters continued to kill the birds outright. By 1890, their populations were estimated to have fallen to just thousands, a shadow of the billions that once darkened North American skies.
Passenger pigeons did not operate as single organisms. That if you reintroduced 500 passenger pigeons, 1,000 passenger pigeons, they would not be doing what passenger pigeons do. What passenger pigeons do was use a really clever ecological strategy of massing in enormous numbers. And that was their strength.
But that strength, their massive numbers, ultimately became their undoing. By 1899, the last confirmed wild passenger pigeon was shot and killed. The species, once so abundant, dwindled to just a few individuals in captivity by the early 1900s. The last known passenger pigeon, a female named Martha, died in 1914 at the Cincinnati Zoo, marking the official extinction of the species. This loss did not just impact the pigeons themselves, but also the ecosystems they shaped. Passenger pigeons played a crucial role in forest dynamics by damaging canopies and suppressing understory plants. Without their presence, tree seed availability increased, leading to a boom in the deer and mice populations. These mice, carriers of ticks that spread Lyme disease, contributed to the expansion of the disease from isolated areas in New England to much of the East and Midwest. The extinction of passenger pigeons serves as a stark reminder of humanity's capacity to irreversibly alter nature and the far-reaching consequences of that loss.
Climate change? No. Do I put it on the scale of ocean plastics? No. But I do put it up there as a really graphic emblem of what we're doing to the planet, often in ways that are a lot more invisible than we saw with a passenger pigeon.
Legacy inspired the creation of Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge, protecting species like brown pelicans, herons, and egrets from plummeting. A decade later, the Weeks-McLean Act ended hunting during nesting seasons, and by 1918, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act safeguarded non-game birds across borders. These laws laid the groundwork for the 1973 Endangered Species Act,